Good evening, everybody. It's 6:02. I call the meeting to order. Um, and we noted that we have quorum for tonight's meeting. Chip has excused absence. So other than that, um, who is going to lead us to Pledge of Allegiance? Mm, who do I pick? Who do I pick? Kathy. Kathleen.
Um, Virtually stand and think. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the
of
United
the United
States
States
of
of
America,
America,
and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic
to the republic
for which it
which it
for which it
stands,
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 one
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 nation,
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 under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty and
liberty and
justice for
justice
all.
for all.
Okay, so just so you guys know and understand how I pick, I like to either have the senior most member or the junior most member in the committee to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm not singling out anybody. Um, Having said that, let's do a roll call. Um, for I'm looking at the roster. Chip has excused absence. Susan. Are you here?
I'm here.
Thank you. Vanita is here. Kathy,
here.
Carla,
Present.
Ryan.
I'm present.
Thank you. And do you guys want to introduce yourself and introduce FUSD side of it, Mr. Hillman?
Sure, we can definitely do that. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, okay, it's not already listed as one of the agenda items. So I'll just go around really quickly and introduce everybody. My name is Danny Hillman, Associate Superintendent. We have Laura Forrest here, our Chief Information Officer with us, PIO, Public Information Officer. We have, and I'd like to introduce from RGM Kramer, our new construction management firm, program management, Rick Kramer. We have with him DJ Halbert and Omid Azizi. They are all from RGM Kramer. I'd also like to introduce Priscilla Wong, who just started. She's in week number 2. I think this is day like 7 or 8. Priscilla is our new FUSD bond program manager. This is a position that has been posted for several months, and we were lucky and happy to get Priscilla coming from Alameda Unified. And then I'd like to reintroduce someone who I think the committee had a chance to meet back in either October or November. I can't remember which. And that's Patty Paulson, who is with Key Analytics. And she is the primary person going forward working with Keystone, which is our financial software for all of our facilities programs, including Measure E. And so this united team here will be the staff that will be supporting the CBOC and the Facilities Advisory Committee as well. So I wanted to reintroduce them all, or introduce for the first time. And we'll be dividing things up such that Patty will be providing most of the financial review and reporting. And then I think DJ with the RGM Kramer will be providing the project update. So for the CBOC members and anybody watching now or later, that both of those roles were filled by Vanner in the past through the month of December. And so going forward, this is how we plan to provide the same updates that the committee is used to seeing, but we'll be splitting it between those individuals. And then over time, we might hear more and more from Priscilla as she gets on board and understands the projects better. She's only got, I should reverse that. RGM Kramer only has a few weeks on her. They started mid-December. So everybody's learning the program all at the same time, which is a good place to be because we're learning lots of things. So so a little extended introduction there, but I wanted to give roles as well as names just so the committee knows what to expect. So back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hillman. And that is exactly what we needed. I know that this meeting is a place where we are meeting a lot of new people. So I would like to welcome everybody who's new to FUSD and to CBOC support team, and I look forward to working with you guys. Moving on, um, I would like a motion to have approval of the agenda.
Anita, I have a question about
Sure.
what uh, Mr. Hillman just talked about. I just
Sure.
wanted to ask, can you specify which of those employees are actually FUSD employees? I just wanted to clarify.
Sure. Priscilla is.
And then everyone else is like a contracted employee?
They're not employees. They're just vendors.
Vendors, okay.
In professional services. So Patty
Okay.
Paulson services were actually secured, and you can nod or correct me, Patty, I think back in maybe January of 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, I have to go back actually. I think it was during we went out, through the RFP process. I think we were brought on in, I want to say February.
February of 21, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then RGM Kramer was brought on board with board action at the December 22 meeting to replace Vanner.
I don't think there's any doubt, but I'm also an FUSD employee, just to make sure that's clear.
Got it.
I didn't say that because I thought that was assumed.
Okay, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
clarification. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kathy and Susan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Do we have any public comments or commission? Do we have any anybody from public who's attending the meeting tonight? Okay. Do we have any public comments? I have not received any.
We haven't received any that I haven't received any.
Okay. Thank you. I did, however, talk to a few people and encourage them to go join our committee. But that report will be probably coming from you guys, and if anybody has applied yet. Did you have an opportunity to look?
We have it later on the agenda.
Yes, I have seen that. Moving down. Approval of December 7 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of December 7th meeting minutes.
Thank you. Any seconds?
Second.
Thank you, Susan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Meeting minutes approved. January, February, Measure E financial report. Keystone. So that agenda item will be, yeah, please go ahead.
All right. I'll go ahead and share my screen with you guys. So are you seeing the report?
Yes.
I am.
Okay, great.
Is it
Okay.
possible for you to enlarge it just a bit?
Sure.
Make it full screen? Thank you.
All righty. So we try to do is keep the report a little bit similar to what you've seen before, but with a lot of our reports is actually even make it better as far as more easier for you to understand and do some recaps on these reports. And my experience is I'm a licensed CPA. I was a school district auditor for 5 years, and I worked in schools for 15 years, last as a CBO. So I have worked with a lot of districts statewide. I've been with this company for 15 years. And so one of the needs we really saw is to be able to report to bond oversight committees. So what we try to do is always recap. So this Measure E bond, this $650 million bond, we give you a little recap here. It was passed on June 3rd of 2014. Great community support, 61.8%. And then just some of the bond language, things that were included. So we just list the representatives, and then the bonds were issued. They've been fully issued. It was over 5 series as noted below. So 2014, 16, 18, 21, and 22. So the full bond measure has been issued at this point. Then over on page 3, here's the 650 million. Interest earned to date, 15.2. And then there was a miscellaneous deposit that went back into this fund. I think it was a refund. So our total project funds available, 665.2 million. This report, we're uploading data from the district's escape files weekly. And so this report took us through expenditure data through January 20th. So we have, these are expenditures made, warrants cut out the door payments, 480 million. We have remaining what we call encumbrances, which are the POs and contracts the district has entered into. So 71.8 million of additional commitments. So our total commitments to date, almost 552 million. And the budget remaining for the open projects is 113 million. So we just reconcile back to funds available, 665.2, to the projects that are planned. And we'll break down this information a little more detail, but wanted to give you a high-level summary. And then this next section, you're kind of used to seeing this, so we kept this in, which is just a summary of, again, the 665.2 million of revenue. All of that's been received. Here's the budgets, the encumbrances, budget remaining. Our system is a true database, so however we slice and dice the reports, the information will be the same. And then we just provided the same kind of little bar chart where you saw, here's the total budget. The funding has all been received, encumbered, remaining budget 17%. Then we have the ability within our system to take that full 665.2 million and break it down by what we call project type. So the district uses, we customize our setup to the district's chart of accounts. And in their chart of accounts, they use management code to identify the project type. So these codes on the left are all the different project type or management codes. We give you a summary by each project type, the total budget. You can see modernization is a big component, as well as some of the middle school conversions. But the way this report reads is the total budget minus the encumbrances calculates to remaining budget. And then this last column, encumbered balance, if you take the total encumbrances less what's been paid out in expenditures, that calculates back to what is left to be paid out on the POs and contracts the district has entered into. So this is starting to break down this information that you saw on the summary pages into a little bit more detail. All right, is there a question?
Yes. Patty, this is Carla Cox. In the last chart, the way that it's project codes are outlined, is it only Measure E funds, even though it's kind of broken down by project code? So for example, you list the pool repair and replacement. I think it's 8460 is the project code. But I think if this includes the Mission High School project, I think it was like part Measure E and part general or another type of funding. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear as to what this number reflects.
Right. This is all Measure E. So we're putting at the top of each report will be, it's all Measure E. This is a financial summary for this committee of what we're reporting is the dollars assigned to Measure E only.
So the 804,000 under the pool replacement is just the Measure E funds used, but there could be other funds from other sources that is also in that same project.
Correct. We are tracking the district's complete capital facility program, and we can provide reports that are multi-funded. The task of the Measure E committee obviously is the Measure E dollars, but we have the ability to show the whole pie or a slice of the pie.
Okay.
So this right here is just the Measure E slice of the district's capital facility funds.
Okay. Clear.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, so then we break it down a little bit further as we give you that same information, that same $665, I'm sorry, 665 million, but it's broken down by each campus. This might be a little harder to read. Seems like the bigger I make it, the fuzzier it gets. So hopefully in the format you have, it's easier to read. But it just breaks it down by each and every campus code. So the district uses a site code, and that's what's listed here are all the site codes and how the spending has been across all the different campuses. So the same 665.2 million across all campuses. From there, then we kind of break it down by what we call major project group. So out of all those different project types, we kind of group them into what we call all the modernization type projects, what's included in new construction and replacement classrooms, technology upgrades, facility support program costs. There were some miscellaneous, I think that's that project stabilization project, 1.8 million. And then what we have left in what we call the bond program contingency, almost 1.7 million. So all the projects have a project contingency, and then overall, this is the bond program contingency. And as interest and other things are generated, this will probably go up. Okay, so that's just by project grouping, taking that longer list of projects and summarizing them into more the project grouping. All right, this next section is the Measure E project summary report for just the open projects that are remaining. So you'll see here, there's a lot of modernization. I think before what they were splitting it out into various reports, like what was started, what wasn't started. Obviously, anything that doesn't have anything spent or encumbered, these projects have not been started. So we tried to do is simplify it. This is what's still on the open list. And then the rest is the closed list. We'll look at the next section. So you'll see here is the site code and the project type code is that second field. So these are all the 8180s. Those are all the modernizations that are remaining, that are currently open on the project list. And we've got the middle school conversions, some more mod. And then we have the amphitheater. We have different support costs. And then one of the things we want to highlight here, and I put a little asterisk right next to the 19.2 million with a footnote. So up until recently, the district had been going through a rather challenging accounting process to reallocate all the what we call facility program support costs back to each and every individual project. And these costs would all accumulate. And if you remember, there was like a negative project line that would get allocated at the end of each fiscal year. And most districts statewide that I work with all just account for those in a project line. So you get to see all the cost of what it takes to run these, a big program like this. So rather than going through this extraneous exercise and really creating, more of a challenge, we are keeping those costs centralized. We have a complete accounting, and we can run all kinds of reports to get right back to what these numbers are. But rather than going through the exercise and the confusion of trying to reallocate all those dollars, the district made a decision to keep those costs centralized, and we can run reports to show you what those costs are. So this is what's left in open projects, 473.9 million, of which here's that same 113 million that we said on all the previous reports are the remaining budgets for these open projects. Are there any questions up to this point? So this is the open project list.
I have a bunch of questions, but I was
Do you want to
kind of
stay
holding.
here on this?
I was kind of holding them till the end, though.
It's up to you guys, however you want to stop me along the way or wait till the end. I can come back to any individual report.
I think we can go as the slides go, because since we're on the same topic, probably it will help to address the questions as we are moving forward.
So would you like to ask
right.
the questions now? Is that the
yes,
consensus?
that's what I would say.
All right, then. So we're on the open projects section at the moment, right?
Right.
And we can go back to my other questions later, but I do like the distinction between future and in progress projects. I like that being explicit, because an in progress project implies that it's, kind of board approved, right? That it's gotten to a certain state, versus future implies to me that project has not yet been approved to move forward. And I think that's important, because an in progress project, you probably can't change. A future project, we could reallocate funds if there was some other pressing need. So I think that's an important distinction I found very valuable in the previous report.
Okay. So all of these, so you're talking about the projects where there has been a board approved budget set, the actual construction or design work has not begun.
I think that's correct. Yes, because I know technically, yeah, I think that's correct.
So all these projects right here, we can separate out this report, the ones that have not started, they've been approved, just not started yet. I can move those to a separate report if that's more helpful.
And maybe, Mr. Hillman, you can clarify on the process, because I don't know the exact step. All right, there's the implementation plan with the budgets, but then there's usually a point at which staff goes to the board and says, okay, we're moving forward. And we had different tiers in the implementation plan as well, of projects, a tier 1, a tier 2. And so being able to keep track of that is helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the distinction that maybe what you're speaking to, Brian, is that we have group 1 projects, for instance. There's 5 elementary schools that the board has set a budget for, and they're currently in design. And those are listed here because they have some expenses, like Green, Matos, Mission San Jose Elementary, etc. They haven't constructed anything yet, but they're incurring expenses. When you get to schools like Briar, Cabrillo, and Glenmore, those schools have not had official board approval, but they are on the list to have work done as part of Measure E. Then there's a whole nother set of schools that has loosely a scope of work that we kind of know they need, but they probably won't be part of Measure E because we'll run out of funds before we get there. Kind of think of it below the line, right? So that's the distinction between a school like Briar that has nothing encumbered or expended versus Green, which does, even though it's a low dollar amount as it relates to the overall budget. So we can do and show it any way the committee wants to show it. It's not difficult to do. That's why we did it this way, to get feedback.
So I definitely like the previous way it was organized, where we had in progress, future projects, and then I like how projects were annotated: group 1, group 2, group 3, and then we also had the not funded projects list. I think that's useful for transparency.
Yeah, we can replicate that format.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at prior CBSC report here, and Brian, I think you're referring to this page.
Yeah, I think it's right here's. I think the last one from December. Did that change to the prior December 7th?
Yeah, I'm referring to that one too. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Page 7 and page 6 kind of broke out. There's page 2 within progress. So
yeah.
The other.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously those are not in Patty's database. because there's no assigned budgets or expenditures to them. So we can incorporate that in the future PowerPoints, the not funded project page. Of course, that's not going to change.
That's this list right here.
Yes.
Yep. No, I think and it'd be great if that could be added to the core report. Because I find it handy having it all in one place. Otherwise, you have to go digging for historical context. And then the other thing I noted was that the footnotes in the previous report, I didn't see the footnotes in the new report, and I think the footnotes are important.
Yeah, we should be able to just incorporate those.
Yeah, we can add those.
Brian, do you have anything else to add?
My other things are earlier in the report. So one minor but important to me thing is if you could correct the spelling of my name when you get a chance. I'd appreciate it. Everybody, my name's got a few tricky letters in it. Everybody misses the D before the T. And then in the charter on modernization, I guess I was surprised how big the modernization part of the pie was, given that our middle schools are a mix of modernization and new construction. Was my recollection.
Yeah, at this point, all the middle school conversions are lumped into that modernization part of the pie because it is kind of a hybrid of both. So I can work with, I don't know if they can allocate or come up with a percentage of how much at each of those sites is actual new construction versus modernization. That's something we could look at for a future chart.
Maybe
the other option that we discussed that we did not do for this version, but we could do for a future version, is that one of the project types be middle school conversion. So you have a new construction bucket, a modernization bucket, and then a middle school conversion bucket. So again, we can show it however you guys want to see it.
Yep.
I think it'll help since we only have 5 junior high schools. We can probably, just for the sake of clarity, we can have a pie chart for all of them individually, talking about modernization projects and total expense and leftover budget money or whatever. Is it asking too much?
We could break out the middle school conversions. That's an easy thing to do.
Is that what you meant, Benita, to have the separate pie for just the middle school?
No, separate pie for each school.
Oh, okay. That's
Well, each school, there's a lot of schools. If you go back to the list at the kind of the top where we have the list of all the sites. So there's back at the top.
Just the conversion program for the junior highs. Just the 5 schools.
Oh, just the 5 schools do just a middle school conversion pie?
Yes. Carla, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was interpreting that they would make a separate slice for just the category of middle school conversion. That would be part of the
on here.
Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen, that you would maybe break out. So there would be a separate slice that would be labeled middle school conversion, almost like its own category. That's what I was envisioning.
Yeah, we can easily do that.
But I don't understand the purpose of having each individual middle school have a pie chart. I don't know what that would entail.
So for the reason why I mentioned that is because there was a conversation just before I stated that how much money was spent on modernization versus how much was new construction. So if there is a ask to see how much is being spent just on modernization per school, per junior high. That might answer that question. But I do understand your question, your ask too. It will be a good idea to have a modernization slice on this pie too.
Yeah, it'd be really easy to pull out the middle school conversions as a separate slice.
So I guess to get to the heart of the reason why I brought it up is well, and maybe this is actually other funds as I start thinking about it, and it'll lead to another question. But I know different funding sources have different requirements, right? Some funds have to be used for new construction, some funds for modernization. That's not true of the bond as I'm thinking about it now. But that was originally what I was, one of the aspects I was thinking about. But I think I'm fine with, I personally find either making it accurate so that new construction or modernization is accurate, whether it's a middle school or not, or having a separate pie just for the middle schools. That's middle school modernization and new construction. I think both both approaches are perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's easy to do because on this chart right here, all you're taking is of the 665. Here's the middle school conversions. We could pull that out as a separate slice.
Yeah, it
That's
shows,
really
approximately 55% of the program would be that slice.
Yeah, I personally think that's kind of sufficient, and we can always, if we need more detailed reporting as we're communicating to the community, we can cross that bridge and look at that later.
So maybe for future, and maybe it doesn't have to be repeated in every presentation every month. Maybe one time we have that kind of pie chart where we are, because there has been a lot of conversation in the community about that they don't see things happening in their facility. So I think it will answer that question, that there is that this much was spent on modernization, this much was spent on facility development, or things like that. So that probably will help elevate any issues that the parent community brings up about construction there on their school sites. And I'm just saying middle school just because of the reason that it's really hard to do each and every facility.
So I think we have to be extra careful with that, because this actually brings up one of my other questions. In any kind of presentation of the community, there probably needs to include more than just the bond fund. So, for example, this will also be a question. Mr. Hillman, I know the board allocated, I think it was Fund 25 funds to the Thornton project, which in turn should free up more Measure E money. I'll let you recap that, but because of decisions like that, it becomes, it would be unclear just to give the numbers for Measure E when a big chunk of money was contributed to the Thornton project from another funding source.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think
Did anybody else lose Danny for sound?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Lost your audio. No, still can't hear you.
Oh,
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened. Yes, there's a couple different ways to do this, and I think our chair is on to something that I was going to ask a question to maybe help focus the conversation, not just now but in the future. We can, and when I say we, I really mean Patty, can run the data literally 200 different ways. So the real question is, what would you like to see in a monthly report or in the regular report? And then that's one item. And then what other questions do we have that we can answer by, she could do a live demo of the system and say, I have a question, and give her 30 seconds and she'll pull it up and show you. Those are kind of two different things, right? And so that answers one piece of where I hear some of the questions coming from. The second thing, Brian, that you bring up about multi-funding a project was brought up by Carla earlier around the pool, for instance, where some was used for Measure E and some wasn't. So the reality is the purposes of trying to be kind of efficient for the purpose of the CBOC, we keep the everything for Measure E only, because we want to make sure you're getting an opportunity to see what you need to see to be able to sign off on things. When we start talking about the larger picture of multi-funding things across different accounts and all of that becomes more of an advisory role. And so because we have two committees here, that it's a little more complicated. So we're happy to share that information with CBOC so that you get a better picture of what's happening. But the reality is that the project itself, we can go over the scope and you can see how much of it's coming from Measure E, and we can answer those questions in real time. It might be the simplest way to do it than trying to predict what the question will be from every corner of the district and come up with a report that shows that, if that makes sense. So we want to be available and provide the information that people have to answer their questions. Sometimes that might be hard because you get a twist on a version of a previous question. There's no way to predict that, but we could do it live and show you where the money came from and how it works. So we're trying to do kind of a couple different things all at once, if that makes sense. So when it comes to Thornton, and I think Patty's going to get to this, we have not yet done some of the budget transfer pieces on the district side for it to be reflected. So what you're going to see when we get to Kennedy, I think you might be able to see on the slide that's displayed, the budget still shows the original amount that was approved by the board prior to November. We haven't done it's not a transfer, it's really freeing up the dollars from one project and then allocating them to another. So that's what you're referring to, Brian, with regard to the Thornton and Kennedy and are interrelated.
That's one of the reasons I love the footnotes, right? Because the major decisions are in the footnotes, and it's easy to refer back to them and go back to the actual board decision date from the footnote. So, and the fact, may I ask, is there an ETA on making that change?
Yes, we were trying to have it done for this meeting, and we had to cross a couple of T's and dot some I's with legal counsel. So it got delayed in the month of January. We'll have it probably reflected in the March report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one more question. How much money was that again?
I believe it's $15.7 million.
Approximately. I'm using it mentally in my head to think about what that means about the contingency. That's why I asked.
The contingency for Measure E?
Yeah.
It doesn't change the contingency for Measure E. So basically what ends up happening is the 15.7 million comes away from Thornton and goes to the contingency, and then comes from the contingency and goes to Kennedy.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions, or can we move forward? Seeing none, let's move on.
All right. So they've just finished. So this is all the open projects we were just covering here. So that's the 473.9 million. And then the next section are the completed projects. You've seen this report before. So again, it's going to give you every project and by site and code. So this is every in site code order. So like as a beta, you're going to see every project here that's been completed and closed out. This goes down, I believe, to page 12. So there's $191 million worth of projects that have been completed. Then the next section, I took from you guys we're getting like kind of the monthly picture. So the last report in December had expenditures from October 29th to November 29th. So since we're uploading pretty much every week, this is taking us from November 30th through January 20th. So this is all the new expenditures. And this in the order of each project. And then whether there's we call the ABC category, site, planning, and construction. And it will be in chronological order. So for this is Centerville Middle School conversion. Here are charges, and then it goes across horizontally by the subcategories. So, you know, we have under planning, the architect engineering fees, DSA fees, CDE, energy analysis, etc. And under construction, we've got main construction, construction management, if there was any demolition, other construction, interim housing, inspections, etc. So what we're providing here on all the new expenditures since the last report you've seen. And this is a detail, and we can run this also for all projects that are open at a summary level. Lots of options on how you want to look at and display data.
Can I ask another question about the centralized costs?
Mm-hmm.
So previously, correct me, I'm going to describe what I think my understanding is, and please correct me. But the impression I was under is that previously costs were allocated each individual project budget, but now they're all centrally reported. And does that mean that we would see the project budgets change even for past projects?
So what we've done, or the district made the decision to do, is for starting in this current fiscal year, they're no longer going to go through this allocation methodology of allocating 4.88% out to the open projects. So they're just going to keep those costs centralized. So you can see what they are, what it's costing to run the program on a centralized basis.
And so then the 19 million represents the cost to run the program from date X to the end of the program, then in effect, right? Only really part of the cost to run the program.
Yeah. So what they were doing previously is the cost would be, you know, they'd actually encumber all the costs, and then at the end of each year they would allocate a portion out to each project. So what it was doing is kind of skewing the data for reporting purposes. It didn't change overall. The budgets have not changed overall in total. It's the same, you know, $650 million plus interest. That amount has not changed. It's just more within the parts of each of the projects. It's just keeping those costs centralized versus trying to allocate them out. So no effect on the overall bottom line of what the board has approved.
Okay. Carla, you have your hand raised?
Yes. On page 10, under, I think it's Horner, the top of page, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at page 16. Page 16, where it lists Horner, junior high, and then under construction, there's a cost activity date 12/2/2022, and then it says Consolidated Engineering Laboratories is the payee.
Correct.
And it's construction testing. I thought Horner was done, completed. So what's that cost for?
We can look it up, and maybe what Patty's doing right now.
Yeah, what it could be is that construction often is done, but the final billing coming in. So if this was anything that came, I'm not sure when the actual project was completed, but this bill was received, or it was actually paid December 2nd. So it was fairly recent that it was paid.
What we can do is pull the information and answer your question more specifically. I can tell you that since I started I was actually talking to Rick about this today. This is now I just completed month 4. We had a lot of items that were left over that had not yet been paid. And then we also had some items come through that the contractor or the engineer or would send us billing because they sent it to an email address that the employee no longer works here or something like that. So we can find out exactly what was needed. Oftentimes too, after projects are closed out, we might get something we have to file with the state, for instance, or something else, and we realize we don't have what we need. Maybe they didn't give us a final report or something like that. Since this is an engineering lab, this might be related to something like a copy of a report or something like that. But we'll pull it and answer the question next time we meet.
Yeah,
Okay.
it could be a final verified report required by DSA. Kind of the last expenditure that is made, which often happens half a year to 8 months after you finish construction, is we make a final report to DSA, and then they like to send us an invoice for the increase in fees. So oftentimes you get one final expenditure. It could be as much as $50,000 from DSA just as a reconciliation of the fees that DSA charges. So it's unpalatable sometimes to see that final invoice come in from DSA, but expenditures do trickle in, for as much as a year after the actual building is occupied.
So the Horner project, I know a lot of times they talk about a final punch list, or I don't know if that's the right lingo, but is that Horner project done with its final punch list and all of that, or is that a question for later?
My belief is the construction is done. I know there's still maintenance manuals and things that need to be turned over to the district, but my understanding is the contractor has completed their work, and that's their punch list.
So I was told, talking about Horner, I was told that Horner has lots of stuff that was not supposed to be there, and then there are things that was asked and are now not there. Like for example, basketball hoops was one of the things that was told to me, that they were supposed to have 6 basketball hoops, and that is where they started, and now they end up with 2. So talking about punch list, I was told that they are not. Horner is not very happy with the final version of what they have completely, and the talking about again punch list. If there was a plan for 6 hoop and they end up with 2, I think it's something that we need to be concerned about.
Yeah, just to clarify punch list, punch list is really a representation of what work is remaining that is under contract with the contractor. Oftentimes things like the basketball hoops is something that wasn't in their original contract. So something like that, decisions need to, be brought forward to the board if they're going to be added to the project. And that could very well, if the district decided to add that, it could be an entirely different contractor that does it. So just want to clarify the difference between scope and punch list.
Okay. So do we have a system where we go back to the administration of the school and talk to them and see if there are any gapping holes between what they see at the end and what they wanted, or what they have requested in the beginning? What was the plan?
We do, but I can tell you as a former site principal that most principals are pretty vocal about letting people know when they feel like something turned out different than what they were expecting. And I can tell you in this case, it's no different. Horner principal reached out to me within my first 2 weeks of here and had questions. And so we're working through some of those questions. But to Rick's point, sometimes things are discussed, but they're not formally approved or added to the contract. So there's a miscommunication about the expectation was that it was going to happen, but if action was never taken to formalize it, then it just got left. And so one of the challenging things with Horner for me is that it preceded me and preceded Rick and his team, and didn't fully precede Patty, but Patty didn't have visibility into scope. She was just doing budget stuff. So we are digging into the situation at Horner. The basketball hoops is on my radar, and I'm looking to see if it's possible that it can be added still. I have to dig into it. But I will be honest and say that it is a lower priority right now than some of the other things we have going, like the other 3 middle school conversions. Those have been top priority since I got here, to put those front and center, to put my arms around those, to make sure we all understand them so that they get completed on time. So it's not that I don't know about these other things. It's we're just working through it. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in the essence of time, let's move on.
Okay. So I'll take you to the end. This is like on page 20 here. So of the new expenditures since the last report, there was 11.1 million of expenditures broken down into these various categories in planning. And the bulk of it obviously is in main construction, almost 9.7 million there. This just gives you a nice little total and subtotal overall. And again, this report is just run, this is for a slice of time, but it can be run at a summary level for all projects. It can be run for any particular project.
Okay. Susan, you have a question?
Yeah. So I'm just curious. So you have B for planning, C for construction.
Correct.
I wonder if design is part of planning. Is that how you define it?
Yeah, if it's in the architectural, going across here, these are the subcategories under like planning. So it would be architect and engineering fees, DSA, Division of State Architects, CDE, California Department of Ed. So all of these, preliminary testing, these are all considered part of planning. And then the construction type categories is main construction, construction management, if there was demolition, other construction, interim housing, inspections, construction testing, and even furniture and equipment are all included in those categories.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions before I stop sharing?
I just had one final comment. Those of you who've known me for a while know this report's near and dear to my heart. I worked years and years ago with previous staff to help create the original version of this report, or the format of it. And thank you, Patty. I liked the additions of the summaries up front and some of the site-based tables you put in there. So thank you for continuing to move it forward as well.
Great. Yeah, and I've made notes along the way, and I'll work with Danny and the RGMK team, and we'll come back next month with some of those additions included.
Thank you, Patty.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Moving on. The next agenda item is update on Measure E bond project introduction RGMK. So, are we still working on it, or did we already do it? I thought we had introductions, but.
We did introductions, but RGM Kramer and specifically DJ, I think, is going to take the lead on updating the committee. Maybe not, maybe Rick. We have a PowerPoint slide deck for the update on the projects themselves.
Well, hopefully DJ's still here, so he can share that.
I am, yeah. Let me pull this up here. Let me know if this opens up for everyone.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. And just before this, I was looking to kind of create the whole slideshow view, but my monitors, it jiggles everything up. So I'll kind of keep it in this form as it's shown. But basically how we have it set up here is similar to what Vanner had provided, which is kind of just a brief update on the projects that are in construction, and then also an update on the projects that are in procurement or design. So the main projects that I was going to be going over today is the projects in construction, which are our conversions. So starting off with Centerville Middle School, over the past few weeks, since we came on board and transitioning through Vanner, Rick, myself, and Omid have been working with the construction management firms and really reviewing kind of the overall budgets for these projects and forecasting the cost that we think it'll be towards the end of the project as we're getting closer to it. So we know these conversions are due to take place over this coming summer. So looking at the contingencies within the budget, looking at the contingencies and allowances that have been used and forecasted through the rest of the summer here. So I kind of just gave a brief overall view, and these are the same on the rest of the slides, but the current project budget, so for Centerville, roughly 89 million. And then forecast cost, and reason I don't have forecast budget is just, again, cost is really what we're seeing through the permanent construction and inspections, architect fees. So we're actually looking at a little bit of a surplus within Centerville, around 84 million there. And then the contracted completion date is July 9th. This bleeds over a little bit into August. Now, the picture here on the right, that's building H, so the new admin building and the library. That's actually going to be occupied over spring break, the first floor. And then the second floor will be occupied or ready to occupy at the beginning of summer. And the reason with that is we have to remove one of the buildings on site to then build the second set of stairs to fully occupy the second floor. And then the center courtyard renovations and the drop-off lanes and front parking, or front concrete walkway, pedestrian walkway on Fremont Boulevard is what's going to take us into August. So we're still on track with the conversions over the summer. Another thing we have on here is just a couple project challenges. So I like to bring these up if anything has come up between this meeting and future meetings. So one of them is the 2 underground storage tanks that are in site. We actually had one of them already tested and they came back clean. So that's one achievement we've been able to complete here in the last week or two. The second underground tank we're looking at right now, which is on Fremont Boulevard. And we have some contingencies that we can do to help remove that if needed while still allowing access on that pedestrian walkway. And then the last is looking at the foundations and upgrades at the existing portables on site. So that's portables P5 through P9. There is some scope in the base contract for the developer contractor to make some upgrades on it. And since we came on after Vanner, we've been working with Danny and the site to review the site needs, enrollment, and figure out kind of the best use of those portables and the upgrades that would be done to them.
That's very interesting that you found underground storage tanks. What does that even mean and where? Yeah,
so the 2 underground storage tanks, one of them is in the...
together, like... Oh, what?
Susan, you thank you.
So one of the underground storage tanks, it's in the new drop-off lane parking lot. That was the one that was just tested and was confirmed to have no PCBs, which is kind of an organic compound. And so if it needs to be removed, it goes through a very intricate process with Alameda County. I don't think it's the health department. I can't remember the acronym right now, but they basically will, there's a process when they test the soil so that if there are certain those compounds, PCBs, then it needs to be removed in a certain process, and then it gets disposed of at a certain off-site. So the one is in the east parking lot drop-off lane. So that one now is cleared and that'll get backfilled, and then that work can complete in that area. So that's a good accomplishment for us. And then the second one was found on the front of the campus, right on Fremont Boulevard. So it's actually in kind of looks like a little cap and they looked at it, I believe it was end of last week, and it's close to, I think, 14 feet deep. It appears that it was an old, I believe it was oil tank that must have been used for heating on the site. So while they were looking at doing the investigation on Friday of last week, they were starting to uncover some high voltage lines through PG&E and communication lines with AT&T. So they actually stopped completing that because we now need to reach out to those city or public agencies and then get some more information from them so that we're not disrupting any services as they continue their testing with it.
And do you know what was the first tank used for?
I'm not sure at this time, but I can get back to you on it.
Yeah, I believe it was fuel oil as well for heating. So, yeah, old sites, they used to just put those tanks underground, fill them with oil, use them, and hopefully when they abandon them, they drain them first, but sometimes they don't, and the groundwater corrodes through them, and the fuel gets into the groundwater and soil, and it becomes quite a hassle to make sure that they're removed and all the soil is very, very clean afterwards because it is a school site.
Wow, that's interesting. Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with this differing site conditions, are we still talking about $5 million lower than the current budget for the forecast costs?
Less.
Yeah, less. So it looks like we have less forecast right now, right? The forecast amount is smaller than the current budget?
Correct.
Correct.
So with this issues going on, you think it's going to be still lower?
Yeah, there's plug numbers in for those issues. So yeah, but we imagine we'll be able to recoup budget from Centerville and Hopkins.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just to add to Rick's point, so that forecast cost, it includes approved change orders or PCOs that have already gone to the board. And then it also includes actual forecasted, like Rick was saying, the plug costs. So it gives us a more accurate kind of complete or final cost to the contract amount for the permanent construction.
Yeah, CM's put something called exposure in, and that's an estimate of what issues known to date may cause.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Moving on.
Going unless there's any more questions. So Hopkins Middle School, again, current budget around 83 million. Again, we're looking at a good surplus of funds within that project as well. So the forecast cost is roughly 72 million. The contract completion date, end of June, and we are still on track for a mid to end July completion for the new buildings, which is on this left picture here. So the K1 building, the MBR or multi-use building, that's been occupied now. So that was occupied in beginning of January. So it looks really good. A couple punch list items that we were kind of discussing earlier, those have been taken care of over the last week or two, and then we'll continue over the next week or so. And good thing is no real major challenges at Hopkins at this time. So plan is if anything comes up is I'll bring it to the new update for the group here.
Thank you.
Yep. Thornton Middle School conversion. So a little bit of a smaller surplus, but we're still looking at a surplus, which is good. So about that 89.3 million current budget, and then that forecast cost, it's supposed to say cost there, around 87.6 million. And there's different parts of Thornton. So we have the new admin library building, and then also the modernizations, which are both ongoing right now. And then there's some additional modernizations that will take place over this summer. So the new admin library scheduled for early August, a couple weeks due to some inclement weather over in December, January with those big storms that came in. So push some time. So we will be using some overtime to really gain that back. It's going to be a tight schedule at Thornton. So both admin and modernizations looking about mid-August in there. So some things that are going on at Thornton is the preparation for the concrete slab at the new admin and library building. This picture here will show the steel erection being completed. The concrete slab we're hoping to pour, or the block is hoping to pour on February 10th. And then the modernizations scheduled for the summer will be using overtime to stay with those, as there is some re-roofing and gas line repairs that will need to be done over the summer. So that's part of the project challenges that I included in there. And then again, the tight schedule. So it will be down to the wire, but I mean, they're catching up speed right now.
That's a good question. I suppose it applies to all the projects, but this one with the tight schedule, are there any mitigation plans should we not be able to meet the August 15th date?
Yeah, we've started having those conversations with the staff. We're very fortunate that the capacity of the conversions far exceed the projected enrollment. So there is wiggle room. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of at Thornton, 5 to 9 classrooms that technically are not needed to house the students. The admin staff is occupying one of those buildings, and then there's some other administrative staff in the buildings. So we just started those conversations with the site staff. Had a nice meeting with Sherry the other day, and we believe that we'll be able to get it done, get the conversion done, but it is prudent to have contingency plans. And yes, we are starting those discussions, but we're fortunate that there's enough square footage on campus to accommodate the 6th graders coming in and accommodate the administrative staff and the library should this building not quite be there at the end of summer.
Okay. Carla, you have your hand raised?
I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Hellman, but I just want to make sure I understand all 3 of these sites, Centerville, Hopkins, and Thornton, all 3, the 6th graders are set to start in August. Is that right, Mr. Hellman?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And with all the construction and kind of the tight deadlines, are they going to be able to do any sort of tour orientation things for those 6th graders and those families? Are the sites able to accommodate those types of things?
We're going to work through that. So as Rick was just discussing, based upon really Thornton is the one where we might have to get more creative with some of those 6th grade welcome orientation, come get your schedule. Let's tell you all about life at Thornton, those kinds of activities. We might have to get more creative because it isn't just about having buildings available. It's also making sure that construction crews and such are buttoned up and taking up less and less space on the campus. So we might be able to do things like still have them come to the big gym there and orient and kind of have a celebration for them to arrive. They might get their schedules and they might be able to point and say, okay, well, that room over there that's still has a fence around it or something is where I'm going to start. It all really depends on the schedule. Ideally, we would have most of everything done by then so that they could walk over, they can look in the window and they can say, okay, here's where my classes are going to be on day 1. But we will work with the principal, as Rick said, we've already started, to talk through those things. Thornton's really the only one of the 3 where we think that's going to be an issue. The other 2, because of when they're taking occupancy of the new construction, it's probably not going to be a problem. As an example, if you go to Hopkins, they're using the NPR right now, the multipurpose room. So if that's the biggest space on campus, that's more than likely where they will host their incoming 6th graders, and they can do that pretty easily. So each site will have a slightly different approach to this because they're different layouts and their project is different. So we'll work and make sure that as much of the campus is available as possible for all of those opening of the year events, including the staff meetings, including the first PTA. You know, there's all the different things that happen that kick off a school year that makes it really fun. And we want to make sure that we give as much access as possible. Even if things aren't 100%, they will get as much access as we can muster.
Thank you, Mr. Hillman. Any other questions? Okay, moving forward, please.
So last slide here for projects in construction. So Kennedy High School modernizations. Great thing is the general contractor is mobilizing this week. So last week we had our kickoff meeting with the site staff. So we include the principal and the secretary of the school because we want to get with them early in the process to mitigate any disruptions to the site. And really the first phase of Kennedy is placing the interim housing portables in the parking lot, because how it's phased is the students will be grouping out of a wing and then will go into the interim housing. Then the modernization will work in that wing or building number. Once that's complete, then it's a flip-flop. So that'll be kind of an ongoing flip-flop based on the phasing of the project. And that's kind of one of the challenges is with the re-roofing of the campus. So with the new HVAC units that are going to be installed on the top of the roof, they will be cutting into the existing roof and it's in pretty poor shape. So part of that is, or what we're working on right now is getting costs for a re-roof or an overlay system that'll give the site an extra 15, 20 years of warranty. And then included in the project challenge as well is just the use of the multi-use room or multi-purpose room. And then that'll be going in the summer of 2024. So there is a little bit of a schedule extension there just due to the constraints of the site not being able to modernize that building during the school year. And so for the current budget, sorry, I skipped over that part. It was 25.4 million roughly. And that kind of goes into then the forecast cost, again, not forecast budget. Part of that transfer from the Thornton over into Kennedy. So this forecast budget here, 42.1, that's already taken into account the cost to actually re-roof the building. And then again, based on that schedule extension of that multi-use room, NBR, the schedule completion moved from middle of April to August. And sorry, these are supposed to be 2024 here, not 2023.
When is the theater work planned?
You know, I'll have to look at the phasing plan of how they spread it out. So I can look at that and then get back to you on it.
Okay, thank you.
The theater is also known as the round room, DJ, just so you know, if you go to the site, talk about that. And Brian, when I looked at the phasing plan, one of the phasing plans, the round room, I believe, is being done at the same time as one of the adjacent buildings. So what they tried to do is take, I'll make up a number, like 5 classrooms at a time, 6 classrooms at a time. And so what we want to make sure is that we're not taking the round room offline without a space for the arts and the drama program to be able to operate. So we want to make sure if they lose that room, for instance, for an extended period of time or however long it takes, that they've got another place that they could do maybe some small black box theater or something else that they can still do with the program that won't impact them negatively. So it's part of one of those phases. I don't remember which one, but it's part of like an adjacent building. They'll move all of them at once.
Yeah, I just brought up the phasing plan that is scheduled to start end of February 2024. So that'll be one of the last buildings to be completed. Modernized.
Thank you. We should probably get moving. So even I need to be careful how many questions I ask now.
All right.
So I have a question/comment. Of course, it is not on the slides, and I don't think it is under our scope, but it is more or less for FAC and Mr. Hugh Hillman. about roofing issues at Mission San Jose High School. I know it has not been scoped, but there were issues brought by the parents and students of Mission San Jose High School about the roofing leaks. Do you have any information, or do I need to join you at for FAC meeting to get the answer?
I may not have an answer this evening, but I can definitely look into it. I know that the roofing needs across the district are known, and I know that during the recent storm maintenance, and Director Tom Ackman did their best with it. Wherever we can, we're trying to introduce new roofs, as DJ was mentioning with Kennedy. Re-roofing Kennedy is not part of the current a board approved budget. That's something that we want to do. We talked about it at the board meeting, but we said we'd have to get costs and bring it back to them for approval. So as roofing relates to Kennedy, there's a little extra steps to take there with the board to formalize that. But you heard what DJ and Rick are working on. With regards to Mission San Jose, I'd have to look into it more. And I think if I had to assume, it's going to be the typical types of complaints that we get whenever there's super wet weather, because we get that across the district. It's pretty, unfortunately, it's normal, and it's one of the things that we don't want to be normal. So we will tackle them as we can.
Yeah, this complaint was not from this year. It was from last year, which was a drought year. So I can only hope that they did not drown in this weather. But yeah. Moving on.
Yep. Yeah. Last slide here is, and there's not too much on it. It really has to do with that first phase or group one. We call it the elementary school modernizations. I think as we get further into the process, I know over the past week and over these next coming weeks, we've started having those meetings, those kickoff meetings again with the architect and the district, going over the scope of the projects, the budgets, and so forth. So I don't have too much of an update on the group one modernizations, but that'll start to fill out more as we're getting forward more into the design process.
Yeah, we had a good long meeting with the architects today. We're trying to align the current scope that they're contracted to prepare construction documents for with the current needs. And we included maintenance and operations in that to help us identify what the critical needs are. So more to follow on that. We do believe all of those budgets will need to be increased. Specifically considering that we've had 3 years of double-digit inflation since those projects were originally budgeted. So fortunately, it looks like we're going to have some savings at Hopkins and Centerville. We're projecting a little bit of savings at Thornton. We're not sure if that will come to fruition, but the next run projects will definitely need a boost in the budgets to take care of the basics, the HVAC, the roofing, flooring, and whatever other critical M&O needs are at this time.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, we still have 5 more agenda items to go through.
Yep, I'll stop sharing my screen here unless there was any more questions.
Yeah, so we have, if we have any questions, can you please hold on? We have 5 more agenda items to go through. Are there items that we would like to table for next time? Because there is no way we can finish it in 9 minutes. Are there any items that the committee would like to table? No.
We might be able to quickly get through. Like the next item, I think will be short.
Update from CBOC annual report. Okay, yes, we can do that. We have not started on it yet. There is a plan to start working on it next week. So, is that good enough? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Did I Next agenda item is long-range facilities. Mr. Hillman, do you have a quick update for us?
Yes, I'll go very quickly. We had a good meeting with the architectural firm AE3. They're going to be working with the FAC in setting up a subcommittee to help with the process of taking the long-range facilities plan and working through the summaries that the architectural firm is creating from the surveys. And then that subcommittee will report out to the FAC. So if you're interested in that process, you could stick around for the 7:30 meeting, and they'll start talking about that tonight and setting some dates, I believe.
Thank you. Would it be possible for you to put it in the chat, the link for the next meeting in the chat? So
I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Next agenda item is update for this is this is something that I don't like to talk about, but yes, we have to do it. Update on member terms and removing of member for attendance and recruitment. I hope you all had an opportunity to look at the membership roster. Or maybe Carla, do you want to share your screen and or Laura, sorry. Laura, do you want to share your screen?
I'm sorry. I was putting that in the chat. Let me share my screen. So the member roster is updated now. Here we go. Can you all see it? Not yet.
Not yet.
There
Yes.
we go. Okay. So we have members that can serve either 3 terms of 2 years or 2 terms of 3 years. So these blacked out term boxes means that the member is not eligible to serve those years. And nobody can serve over 6 consecutive years. So if you see, you'll see that we have some people that are going to term out very soon. Chip, his term will end March 21st. He can't apply for another term. Kathy, same. And we have more terms, and Carla's final term is ending in April. So we have 3 members that will term out in the next couple of months. And then we have more later this year, but those members can apply to continue. So we are going to continue recruiting for positions. We can't fill positions until they're vacant. So we can look at, we can continue to recruit, and then when a vacancy happens, we can put a name forward to the board. But we do have some applications actually going to the board at next week's meeting. So we will have hopefully some new members at our next meeting.
Okay, good. Very good to hear that.
Does anybody have questions about this roster, about your, if you have specific questions about your term or your eligibility, please email me and I will investigate it.
Kathy and Carla, do you have very quick question? We have 4 minutes and we have 3 items left.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I have just a very quick thing saying I have been lobbying a couple people on another committee I'm at for the Fremont Library. And I'm going to follow up today because one of them has been worked on the 7-Eleven committee with me for the school district. And I was also going to say that maybe some of the people that worked on that 7-Eleven committee that was formed about 3 years ago to look at some things, some of those people might be interested in being on the committee. So I'm just kind of my last thing to you guys is maybe that's also an avenue, but I am following up with the 2 people that I was browbeating last week.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, everyone's responsible for finding their own replacement.
Laura, quick question. What are the categories of the applicants that you have?
Is anybody aware of Brown Act considerations? Can I say that before it goes, if it's published before to the board? I can say that the agenda is going to be posted on Friday night and it will be listed there.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you
I'll
for
stop
that.
sharing this.
The next item is within the same item is removal of member. I hope you got an opportunity to look at the letter. Paul, unfortunately, has not been attending our meetings for this whole year. And as he has mentioned last year, he would not attend meetings unless they are in person. But unfortunately, our bylaws say that if you don't attend meetings, you will not be serving, or you should not, right? Laura, you can you can phrase it better than me probably. What is the exact wording on our bylaws about removal of a member if they skip 3 meetings?
So you're asking what the why he was removed?
The wording, what exactly is what exactly does our bylaws say when
A member who misses 3 or more meetings in a calendar year without excused absence can be removed.
Yeah, and I did reach out to him a few months back, and he has not responded. So, unfortunately, we'll have to let him go. Unless any comments? Okay, thank you. Moving to the next agenda item. Update on in-person meetings. Return to in-person meeting because AB 361 is expiring on February 28th. We will have to meet in person. So we'll have to decide and plan our March meeting location. I know there was some discussion earlier, I think in November or even before that, to meet at Central. Do we have any consensus, any wishes where we want to meet?
I'd say any of the junior highs, Centerville, Hopkins, or Thornton, that would be able to accommodate us.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I support the chair representing us and working with the FAC chair on the next meeting location, and Laura and the staff.
Okay. Yeah, I would propose Central if everybody is okay with that, and if FAC chair is okay with that. So,
well, why don't we? I think the 2 chairs and staff can just figure it out. One of the middle schools, right?
Sure, we can.
It depends on availability of of people as well at the school site.
Hopkins, you could show up the new multi-use if you wanted to see that. Centerville's a little muddy right now, but were you thinking of a tour?
That's what was the plan.
Yeah.
We want when we have a meeting at a location, we do go for a tour on that facility too. So
Well, Centerville might be good. There's some good stuff to see in the new building.
yeah.
Walls are still open, ceilings.
Okay. We'll chalk it out and let the committee know. Do we have any future agenda items that we would like to talk about for the next meeting? Do we have any asks?
There's still the future topics listed. Is that just going to carry over? The 21-22 audit report is on the agenda still?
Yes, and that probably will need a motion to table it for the next meeting.
I mean, it's listed under future topics, Benita.
Right. I mean, yeah, but it is still in the agenda item of this meeting. So we will have to, even though it is a future topic, but we'll have, since it is on the agenda, we will have to table it. We'll need a motion to table it if you don't want to violate it.
I think it's just listed.
I interpret.
Yeah,
it's just listed. It's just
listed
a
as a future topic.
So okay. we don't need to table it.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, okay, maybe my interpretation is wrong. Anyways, 7:31. If we don't have anything else going on, we can let Brian and the staff go. So so they can get started with the FAC meeting, and we can adjourn this meeting. Can I have a motion? Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second, my last second. Bye.
Oh no.
Bye.
Well, it was a pleasure meeting all of you, and we look forward to getting to know you better in the future.
Kathy, if Kathy's not here for the March meeting, I just want to say thank you to her. I don't know. Are you not here, Kathy, on the March?
I'm not going to be here for March.
Oh, thank you, Kathy, for your service.
Yeah, thank you for everything you have done for us. Thank you.
I miss everybody already, but it's good to move on. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Kathy.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.